I'm back with the post-game videos for the new season, and it's a brilliant start, isn't it? Ipswich Town 0, Liverpool 2. In the end, a fantastic performance in the second half, overpowered a quite limited Ipswich team. But let's get back to the beginning. Arne Slot started off with basically the 11 who started against Sevilla, except for Andy Robertson replaced Tsimikas at left back, but the same, the other 10 were the same. And so, given the display of that lineup against Sevilla, you might have expected that we would really take the game to Ipswich in that first half, but it didn't turn out that way at all. Not only were Ipswich, as expected, let's be honest, fired up. First game back in over 20 years in the Premier League. Crowds were up for it, the players were up for it, the adrenaline was going for them. And to be honest, we failed to cope with it, and we were dithering at the back, we were indecisive in midfield, and we just weren't clicking at all up front. And it was it wasn't even average first half performance, it was more poor than it was average. And of course, we're all worried. I certainly was anyway. And it's like, what are we going to do? Maybe the team aren't fit enough yet. In the end, in hindsight, it was more that Ipswich were well up for it. You're going to get that in a newly promoted team in a first half. So, very interesting that something that Jürgen very, very rarely did. Arne Slot saw what was going on, and he saw that we were losing the physicality, and he saw that we were losing the duels, and so he sacrificed Jarell Quansah at half time for Konate, and they did have some brute force up front, and it was working for them. And Jarell is going to be brilliant for us for many years, but he's still a youngster. And he was getting a bit bullied, so on came the physicality of Konate. It was the right change, and it was really refreshing to see that something that was going wrong in the first half was addressed at half time. So it made all the difference. It wasn't just that one change that made the difference, but it sent out a message, and I'm sure the message from Slot at half time was, you got to start winning these duels. So anyway, Ipswich, They got 3 bookings in that first half. I think it was in the first 15 minutes or so, and should have had a fourth. There should have been a second yellow for the lad getting himself in a mess and using his hand to pull the ball back and prevent Jota from breaking. Should have been red cards, but it wasn't given. So on to the second half. The team came flying out the traps. I mean, it was night and day versus the first half. They were slick. They were quick, they were clever, they were creative. And a stat from the first half is that we only managed 80% pass rate. We managed 90 against Sevilla, and we were only at 80. 80 is really low, and it just showed you how many times we were giving up possession. Well, the second half, I think we ended the game at about 87% possession, which means that we were in the 90s in the second half. And you could see it, the approach play, the speed of thought and the speed of passing and the creativity that was going on all throughout the team in that second half was a joy to watch. And, if the first half was sort of getting the cobwebs off, the second half, if we can continue with that level of football against almost anyone, is going to struggle with us, because it was absolutely superb. We just started peppering the goal, and then Jota, of all people, missed the header from about 5 yards, which he should have buried. And you're thinking, oh God, is it going to be one of those days? Because Ipswich was blocking everything. But then, typical Jota, he just doesn't faze him that he missed. And there was a ball out from Gravenberch, out to Salah, to Trent, to Salah, to Jota. and he just buried it, and it was just stupendous football. A few minutes later, Ipswich are reeling now. They're on the back foot. Then we have Virgil knocks the ball to Mo, who knocks it into Szoboszlai, who knocks it back to Mo. The defender gets that slight touch, trying to break it up, but not enough, and Mo slots it. Mo slots it for his 9th opening day goal, more than any other player in the Premier League era. And from there on in, for the rest of the game, it was men against boys. They were done. They had no answer. They had one or two nearly moments. They kept running offside, but Liverpool were just slick and brilliant to watch. We could have, honest to God, in that second half, we could have scored 5 or 6 or 7. The amount of chances we had and some of the football that we were putting together. The ref, they had it on 8 minutes. Can anybody who's watching this tell me where those 8 minutes came from? They had 1 in the first half. I was expecting 2 or 3, and suddenly it's 8 minutes. But anyway, didn't matter. Ipswich were finished. We were in control, and it was not just a professional second half display, but a quite superb second half display, and it bodes well for the season ahead. You could see, if you couldn't see it in the first half, you certainly could in the second half. You could see the Arne Slot sort of stamp of the game that he wants to see, and they executed it almost flawlessly in that second half. So, shout out. The first one has to be the great Mo Salah. 212th goal, his 88th assist. As I mentioned, he's now the leading scorer on the opening day in the Premier League era, on 9. And although, Mo might make a few misplaced passes, or he might try a dribble too often, you can virtually guarantee that he's always trying to find an angle, and he almost always does in every game. And I'd say, opening game, he's got 1 goal and 1 assist. Second shout out, I personally think this number 6 obsession is a bit over the top. There's no law stating that you've got to have a defensive number 6 midfielder. It really depends on the style of football that you play, but you do need to have a midfielder who does play in a more defensive way than the other 2 midfielders. And today it was Gravenberch. He's clearly been given a nod. He was given it against Sevilla. He's given it again today, and he was brilliant. He was just superb. His awareness on the ball of what's around him, his short passing and his long passing are superb. He's technically gifted, and some of his stuff today was absolutely wonderful. He really was. I was sitting here watching the game with my son, who was here from California, and my brother-in-law, who was here from Liverpool, all visiting. And Gravenberch was my brother-in-law's man of the match. So Sid, shout out to you. I think he was up there with Mo. Mo gets it because he's such a record breaker. It was another record broken today. Another one that stood out. Trent had a couple of moments in defence, as he quite often does, but his passing through the lines, his clip balls over the top, the way he bends them round players into the path of Mo Salah, just sensational stuff. Another last shout out in players, Dominic Szoboszlai. Started the season brilliantly last season, tailed off, first season in a new country for a new team, and he looked the part again today. Second half, he stepped it up, as did the entire 11. I could have picked virtually every player in the second half and gave them all a shout out, and I will give a shout out to the team because it was just such a brilliant team display. But the last shout out has to go to the new manager. His new style of football looks it looks tasty. I can't think of a better word than tasty. It really does. Possession based. We're going to get scared with the pass now from the back. It's going to go wrong on occasion. You can just know it is. But the pass and move fluidity of his play is really something to see. And he's the first manager in, I don't know how many it is, about 6 or 7 of Liverpool's last managers have not won their opening competitive game, and he has. So anyway, it's off to a great start. It's an away win. We're at home to Brentford next, and right now, as it stands with the next game is not yet kicked off, we're top of the league. You'll never walk alone. Cheers. Ta-ra.